We're going to create the floor now, and we want to go to the first floor view to do that. So go into Architecture, and a floor object is one of the first objects that you'll have to use what's called a sketch to create the boundaries of. So notice that when I selected floor, I went into this sketch mode. It says Modify, Create Floor Boundary. The only way to get out of that sketch mode is to either hit the checkbox to finish the sketch or to cancel the edit mode. While we're in the sketch mode, everything else in the view is grayed out, but we can still use it to select and define the edges of the floor. I want to change the properties from a generic floor to a 4-inch concrete slab, and I want to use the walls to define the slab boundaries. If I use the walls to define the slab boundaries, if I decide to move the walls later, the slab will go with it. That's very important when you're selecting any one of these ways of defining the slab. This attaches the slab to the walls, so if we make changes to the walls, the slab changes as well. So I'll pick those 4 walls, which creates a closed boundary. And you see that pink line, and notice that the pink line is attached to the outside face of stud. So I'll hit the green checkbox, and it's going to ask me some questions. I don't necessarily want the walls to go up to this floor to attach to its bottom, so I'm going to say no. I want to maybe do that manually. And let's take a look at our section view. So this is what we have, and this is exactly what I wanted. I wanted the slab to be at this level here at the top of the foundation wall, but I don't like that the slab and the foundation wall look like they're taking up the same space. So what we can do is join by modifying. We can join the slab and the foundation walls together to remove those lines. So let's go back to that 3D view, and I want to add the footing. Now notice that we still see a line for the slab on these two. It's because in the section view we joined this wall and this wall, but we have not yet joined the slab with this one and the one on the other end. So let's join the rest of the slab to the exterior walls, and then we're going to add the footing that belongs below the stem wall. Under Structure, choose Wall Structural Foundation Footing, and I want to edit the type. This is way too big for what we're going to be using it for, so I'm going to edit the type, duplicate it, and change it to 20 inches by 10 inches. And I will also change that in the actual dimensions here, width of 20 inches. So notice I have to put that inch in there. If I don't, this is what I get. I get 20 feet. I don't want 20 feet. I want 20 inches. And I want a width of 10 inches. Now I can just simply select the bottoms of those walls, and the footing will attach itself to those walls. So let's take a look at that section again. So we hit the plus sign next to section buildings, and we now have the bottom half of the building and the exterior walls in section. I think it's time for us to create a ceiling and a roof. So let's go back to the first floor view, and we're going to create a ceiling in this view by going to Architecture, Ceiling, which is going to put us in that sketch mode, and I want to sketch the ceiling. But before I do so, I want to change the type of ceiling that we have over here. I would like a gypsum wallboard on furring, but I don't think this is set up for architectural residential use. So if we click on Edit Type, I want to duplicate the gypsum wallboard furring, and I'm going to be a little bit more specific. I'm going to call that gypsum wallboard on strapping. Across from Structure, you'll see this big Edit button, and this is defining. I'm going to go ahead and shrink this box a little bit and open the preview so you can see it. This is defining the layers that we're seeing over here That's the gypsum wallboard layer, and this is the metal stud layer. I want to change the metal stud layer to a wood joist rafter layer. And I do want to keep that at 3/4. And then I want to keep the gypsum wallboard at 1/2 inch. So that's representing the strapping layer, and this is representing the gypsum wallboard. So that should be what it looks like when it's done. Hit OK. And I want to use sketching again to define the location, and I want to use the walls again. So I'm going to pick the 4 exterior walls. This time, however, the ceiling joist doesn't automatically attach itself to the correct location, so I do need to move it. So when I take that pink line, let me hit escape a couple of times so we can get into modify. I want to select that pink line, which turns it blue, and bring it in to be aligned with the outside face of stud. And once you do that, it is a good idea to lock it, because that will allow the ceiling to move with the walls if we decide to make changes. So I'm just going to go around and do that on all 4 sides. Alright, so the walls have been locked on all 4 sides. You see the little lock buttons, and they're aligned correctly. So we hit the check box, and let's see where that ceiling went. So there's that gypsum wallboard, but it's not really attached to anything. So we're going to actually create another floor system. I'm going to go to first floor. Actually, I'm going to go to roof plan and create that floor system. Problem is I can't see what I'm doing. So while in the roof plan, I want to change the underlay from none to first floor so I can see that first floor underlay. And I'll use that to create the floor system. So we're going to create a new floor. So I want to find one that's close to what I'm looking for. Let's do the wood joist 10-inch wood finish. But I'm going to edit that and get rid of some layers. I'm going to duplicate it first and just call this 2x6 ceiling joist. And then across from structure, I want to edit that structure and get rid of the oak flooring by highlighting that layer and deleting it. I also want to get rid of the plywood sheathing so that all I'm left with is the structure wood rafter layer, and I want to change that to the actual size of a 2x6, which is 5.5 inches. Now I can define the ceiling, and it will be connected to that roof layer. Let's see what happens if I hit yes for that, and let's see what we get. Alright, so there's the ceiling. We have the walls are connected to the bottom of the ceiling. I actually want the ceiling to be at the bottom of the ceiling to be attached to that 9-foot. So I'm going to use the align tool to align the level. So I want to pick the level first because I want the ceiling to move. So I pick the level first, and then say I'm attaching that to my ceiling. I want to make sure I'm picking the ceiling edge and not something else beyond. That looks like that did it. Notice that that brought the walls up along with it. So now we have the walls at the 9-foot height with the ceiling joists resting on top of them. I also want to attach this ceiling element to the bottom of the ceiling. So I want to lock this attachment that I just did. I also want to create an attachment from that same roof to the top, or the top of the strapping of the ceiling elements that we added. So now we have our ceiling strapping gypsum wallboard, and then we have our actual ceiling joists that they're attached to. And we'll lock that connection as well. A couple of things I want to fix. First of all, this wall right here and the wall beyond there aren't attached to anything. So let's attach those to the roof. And I also, it looks like, want to edit the ceiling so it goes to the inside edge of the wall, not the outside edge. So I can select that wall, the ceiling rather, and edit the boundary. And let's edit the boundary in the first floor. And I just want to move that in to, I might have to unlock it from, I'm going to move it to the inside face of stud rather than the outside face of stud. And that will be more appropriate for the ceiling. Okay, let's check the section, and we can clean up these lines by again joining elements. Let's join this with this, and we'll see that gypsum wallboard match and join together with the gypsum wallboard on the wall. And now we've got our bottom half up to the ceiling. We just need to add the roof.